Hey everybody, I'm Dave Kincaid. Welcome to this week's video where I'm actually going to be talking about Airbnb. I thought this would be an important topic for those of you in Canada where I'm based, but probably in other countries as well. There's a grant that's come out around Airbnb, so I'm going to walk you through that grant. But part of my mission at Alberta Business Grants, and I teach grant writing, is kind of explaining how grants work and where they come from. And also, ultimately, my mission is to build trust between business and government, which is, I know, sort of kind of an odd one, but I think it's a really important one that they sort of work together. And this is a classic video. So if you currently own an Airbnb or you're thinking about it, owning an Airbnb, and for those of you that have used an Airbnb, there's something in this video for you. So I'm going to go through this video. I'm going to walk through sort of this housing crisis we have in Canada, some events that led up to it, and then to this grant. And in so doing, hopefully, get some lessons. There's actually a few lessons. I actually learned lessons around, do you want to own an Airbnb? I'll drop those tips as well. But also, ultimately, I'm a grant writer, teach people how to win grants. But this is quite an interesting story this week. So I hope you like it. Have some patience with my video editing. I'm kind of new at this. I'm getting a little bit more comfortable with it. But if you like it, please let me know in the comments, or you've got some questions. It's a very opinionated one, so I'd like to hear what you got to say. Let's get started. In this first clip, I'm going to show you a classic sort of appears to be like, a regular mom and pop Airbnb investor, their approach to it, and, trying to have a small business from their perspective. And then as we go through this, we'll go through various stages about the problem, and then ultimately how another problem occurs, which kind of catches these people probably blindsided, but all of a sudden in the crosshairs of policy, and then lo and behold, grants get created, which ultimately impacts their business. It's a lot of moving parts. Hopefully I'll do a good job of explaining this to you. But if I don't, let me know in the comments. But if you do like it, please like and subscribe if you think, hey, Dave, show me more of this kind of stuff, because it's kind of cool. At least I think it's kind of cool. Let's get started. This first video I'm going to walk you through today is from the Canadian Real Estate Channel. And yeah, so they're interviewing this Airbnb cottage type investment property ? So let's just watch a couple clips of this and see how it plays out.
So this cottage here, we are almost at, we're around $3,500 a week in the summer months for this. What I'm finding is that a lot of people think that they want more of a rustic cottage experience, but that's not actually what they want. They want something that looks like it came off of Pinterest.
That's Business 101, by the way. A lot of times customers think, I want this, but when you own business for a while, you actually know, no, you say this, but you actually want this. So it's kind of funny. If you own a business, you know what I'm talking about. So you can see the work. This looks like a renovation job, so the investors clearly put some work to make this look nice. Let's see what happens here.
What's going on, guys? It's Rebecca Lynn Matheson here, and welcome to the Cottage Corner. Today we have Chelsea, who's going to walk us through her Airbnb.
Yeah, we're super excited, guys. We're going to take you through the Lazy Bear, which is our brand new renovated cottage in Grand Bend. Come on, let's go.
So there you go. They've bought this cottage. They've put some money into it and they're about to put it on Airbnb.
All right. So this one we call the Lazy Bear. If you want to come back here. So this was actually originally the living room of the space, which was pretty small. So we actually made this into one of the bedrooms. And we like to do bunks just to sleep more people. And this one we did a double over double bunk. So we can actually get 4 people in this room, which is really great. Over here, we still have a smaller living space, but we kind of tried to make it work with, this is actually a pull-out sofa. So I do that in most of the cottages just so we can always sleep extra people if we need to.
Okay, this is going to be part of a problem that sort of is going to contribute. I wouldn't say to their downfall because, it's cottages, it seems good. They think they're doing a great thing for the customer, which they are, right? You families getting together at the cottage. But as you'll see in a video I'm about to show you in a minute, this also can work against them.
And that gets our sleep count up to, 10 guests versus 8. So that's the pull-out sofa there. And then we obviously just have like smart TVs so that people can get whatever they want on those. Now I noticed. All
right, let's stop it there. So pretty basic what's going on. Classic, looks like, someone buys a cottage, renovates it, allows for 10 people to come into this cottage. You can imagine being their neighbor. I'm sure some of the people are great. I'm sure I've been to a cottage where the house next door turns to an Airbnb and all of a sudden they're playing music and the person used to be quiet and, complaints can happen. So this video, it's important to see about this video because this video took place in 3 years ago. So now I'm going to show another clip here. I just like these. Kristen and Michael, they're down in California. They've got this channel where they start an Airbnb. And I think it's kind of valuable here, this lesson they learned. So I'm just going to play this clip here. So that person just did a reno, and there's a couple of just business lessons. I know I'm a business grant writer, so there's just some cool lessons. To be a great business grant writer, you need to know business too, right? Because they're going to ask you, are you capable of doing this? So let's just watch this clip where these people go from they've never owned a business. And by the way, this video is really good for you if you're thinking about, I want to own an Airbnb, or I currently own an Airbnb. Watch this clip because sometimes I find when you get into business, you don't really always know what you're getting into. Watch this.
The first person that tried to book us was trying to book us with the dog, and we were like, oh, it clearly says in our thing, like, no pets, I'm sorry. And the person responded to that and said, oh, well, it's an ESA dog.
ESA dog.
EAS?
Emotional support animal.
Emotional support animal.
ESA.
There we go.
That was, I think, the biggest smack in the face because the person ended up, we had not even booked anyone yet. The person ended up reporting us to Airbnb. We didn't even know that was a thing and didn't even think about it because we've not dealt with that situation.
Yeah.
But it's very eye-opening.
Yeah, the hard part was they didn't even let us know. Like, most people usually say, hey, I'm booking your place. I do have a dog that's an ESA animal. And we're happily like, yeah, sure, that's fine. But they just booked it.
And said, are you cool if we bring our dogs? We've learned we're new to customer service. Dealing with people is new. And the customer's always right.
Look at the smile on their face. I thought that was just a really a cool example of, we're getting into Airbnb. They're trying to do an income and how hard it is, right? So, sometimes investors are considered like, this is just a couple starting an Airbnb and, oh, the investor's a bad person. It's like, no, they're just trying to do it. And then they're learning this new skill and it's super hard. By the way, it's outside the scope of this video, but wow, you watch 30 minutes of these type of Airbnb videos and you learn a couple of things. I'll just give them to you now. One is Airbnb is a lot of work. And what I mean by that is it's another business with customer service. In the cleaning, if you're not near it, or finding great cleaners can be a major hassle. You're getting reviewed. So anyways, life isn't all roses for Airbnb owners. They put all this money in and they renovate this cottage. Now this person comes along and, they're trying to make some extra income and it's like, oh my gosh, this is really hard. We haven't done this before. Now, let's switch to the other side of the coin. Now we're going to go to Kelowna, which if you've never been to is just a beautiful place in British Columbia. And here's a short-term rental. And this is going to eventually lead to the grants, okay? So bear with me. So the next video is this short-term rental gone bad. So let's watch what happens. It's a 2-minute video, but it's great.
I'll be frank with you, I am just fed up with this.
Dave Montpetit's typically quiet Upper Mission neighborhood in Kelowna is anything but, as a neighboring home operating as a short-term rental is causing a nightmare for nearby residents.
Parties going on. We had a tour bus show up and drop some people off. We had abusive tenants in the house that were renting it. They were swearing and intimidating and yelling at the neighbors.
That's just kind of hilarious. I mean, it's not hilarious, but I mean, could you imagine you're really ticked off about this short-term rental? By the way, it doesn't say it's Airbnb. I want to clarify that. And a bus shows up with a bunch of people. I mean, that must have just really ticked them off.
8 o'clock in the morning.
Just earlier this month, another disturbing incident as Montpetit took his dog for an early morning walk.
And I heard loud music and followed by moaning and groaning. There were people having sex in the pool. Just utterly shocked.
I have kids, and some of the stuff that goes on, like vulgar language, the partying, obviously the sex on the street, up in the pool, it's just constant.
Epic failure. Called Infinity Villa, the home has been operating as a short-term rental for 3 years. It's listed on numerous platforms at some $2,000 a night during peak season. Residents were hopeful the new provincial legislation that stipulates the owner must live on the premises to rent it would help shut down the operation.
Okay, so now we're getting into government and grants. So you're starting to see it take place.
But that hasn't happened.
We know there's no owner there. They reside in Vancouver.
The land title shows the registered owners as having a Vancouver mailing address, although according to the website, that may not reflect where they actually live. No one at the Kelowna home was answering the door on Monday. Residents are pleading with the city to help shut down the problem-causing operation once and for all.
I've called the cops multiple times. I've called bylaw multiple times.
We want this Airbnb gone permanently.
But how the home can continue being rented out under these circumstances isn't known, as nobody from the city was available for an interview, saying only in an email to Global News that the rental does meet the licensing requirements. Claudia Van Emmer, Global.
Okay, so he is saying Airbnb. Okay, so we've set the stage here, right? And there was a teaser there on government. Now, what a lot of these people don't realize is there's this whole other world going on. And I find this when people get into grants. Like, this is a classic example of, if you've got a child right now and they just went out, they're in university or starting second semester, which is in January when you're recording this, and they say, hey, mom or dad, should I take an intro to politics class? I'm in business. And people say, no, don't take arts. That's not going to get you a job. Well, spoiler alert, you're about to say you've started this business, things going well. And if you don't know what's going on in government, you're about to get absolutely blindsided. So this is where we go off into a different direction, okay? And we're going to talk about something that's going on completely unrelated. Well, not completely unrelated, but quite unrelated probably for those small business owners, and that is there's a housing crisis going on. Now, there's this Canadian YouTuber called Griffin Milks, and he just done this great video on the state of Ottawa and the housing crisis. So I'm just going to play you just the first clip because he's got a couple great lines here, and I encourage you to check it out. But he says the reality of living in Canada in 2025.
Here, but everything ended up getting boarded up. It literally looks like we're in a George Orwell novel. A lot of crime here, a lot of drug use. There are also some huge homeless encampments.
We could go on. Anyone in Canada right now watching this video, just show you his logo. That's him. Yeah, he's great. So check that video out. But if you're in Canada right now, you're definitely aware of the housing crisis. Intense, homeless people, and like on small towns, used to be in large towns. I remember when I first got my first job in 2003 in Toronto. I remember I was from a small town and I showed up, I got off the bus, after graduate school and looked, and there was a man sleeping on the crate, because heat would come up from the grate, and all these people in suits walking by him. I was like shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, these people are just walking by this guy. Wow, have times changed? I mean, now there's just whole like cities of tents. So it's amazing what you become accustomed to. Okay, so there's this housing crisis going on. Now, I'm going to show you a timeline of events. So this lady here was 3 years ago, okay? And then these people were 2 years ago. Then what happens, of course, you know what happened between 2000 and like 2002. But there's this story that's reported in the news, and I'll read it to you. The value of one consulting firm's federal contract has skyrocketed under the Trudeau government. And it says the cost of McKinsey's contracts has spiked 30-fold since the Harper years. And if you read this was quite a story. You can see, look at their contracts gone up. It's incredible. And then they have, according to this, major role in immigration department. And if you read this, they're getting $24 million in contracts for management advice. And it says McKinsey's influence over Canadian immigration policy has grown in recent years without the public's knowledge, according to two sources within, I think the RCC is, Immigration, Refugees, and Citizen Canada. So it's a government department, okay? And then it says here, McKinsey was an idea from the government. The policy was decided for civil servants. It causes a lot of operational instability. And then it says, this is the source. These people, I'm going to make it bigger for you here. I criticized one of my videos for not making it big enough. These people, these firms forget the public interest. They're not interested in it. They're not accountable. And it just goes on and explains, this firm's involved with it. And again, I'm just reporting the news here. These are all allegations, public news. I'm not trying to take an opinion on this. I don't want to get sued by this company. But, so this is a timeline event. Look at this, of the date of this. It is January 2023, so 2 years ago. Now, come over here. So I'm going to go over here. So now you fast forward another year, and Canada is letting a lot of people into the country, okay? And this is very controversial in Canada. But you can see the numbers are quite staggering what happened. So this is a government page, Canadian government page, right? With this year's levels plan, so this is the government, we have listened to Canadians. We are reducing our permanent resident targets compared to last year's plan. We are reducing from 500,000 permanent residents to 400,000 in 2025. Reducing from 500,000 permanent residents to 380 in 2026. And then you'll see here, if you go down, specifically compared to each previous year, we will see Canada's temporary population decline 445,000 in 2025, and similar to that in 2026. So we're talking big numbers. So we've got this Airbnb going on, people trying to create second income. The costs of housing are really, of everything is causing people to try to come up with extra income. Then look who gets caught in the crosshairs of this. The federal housing minister, this is in late 2023, says, minister floats Airbnb crackdown to boost long-term rental supply. This is why I'm saying, business and government trying to build trust. This is kind of why my mission, I guess. You're getting ready for a real problem here. Now, imagine the lady in the first video doesn't read the news. Imagine she owns this business, gosh knows how many, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars into it, and she's not reading the news. Well, you come down here, And I just want to show you a quote. This is the minister at the time. We believe there's likely tens of thousands of homes that could be made available to Canadians by addressing this particular challenge. Fraser said of Airbnb units, which typically are rented out a few nights at a time. And then he says, if there are tens of thousands of units, we can turn into not a competitor for a hotel. Man, this is like lobbying. I'm going to do a video on lobbying. If you want a video on lobbying, throw it in the comments, because this is unbelievable. Like when you talk about influencing government, but for a minister to say this, like imagine, and I'm just trying to give you a scenario here. The hotel lobby was really powerful in trying to influence them. Like it's incredible, all the moving parts that are behind this statement. For a few, and I'm not trying to take either person's side. I'm just trying to explain to you what's happening. For a few nights, but a home for a family in a community, it's incumbent on us to do everything we can to use those properties for homes. Holy smokes. So now the gloves are off. Okay. So now you've got, this is crazy. So public opinion essentially going against Airbnbs, right? And those news stories where the partying's going on versus the small business owner, it just feels like, you know, the small business owner is not going to win this one because the wind of political change are kind of going against them, right? Because there needs to be housing, and they're tying up housing with Airbnb. But the part of the video I'm trying to just shed some light on is to even take step back for a minute and be a little bit more, like even just be a little bit more critical. It's crazy that in a way, you know, it's almost like, hey, did you create the housing problem? Like, how did this even happen? And it's just, you know, it's all, this is why I get into like this, that film, The Big Short. Did you ever watch that? It's an amazing movie around the housing crisis in 2008. It's like, so in my opinion, like, did you count? Like, did somebody not say, hey, we have this many homes, we can have this many people come in and it should kind of work? Or did they like let 1 million people in and didn't have the housing, and all of a sudden housing, there's a shortage of housing, rents go through the roof? Leave a comment below what you think. I'd love to hear really what you have to say on this. Do you think that this was a role of not counting homes versus newcomers that caused this crisis? And it's real. The other reason I want to show this is like the tents, that Griffin video. We all see it. So, you know, does politics matter? Do competent people matter? And what were the incentives? Kind of my mind as a small business owner, I'm like, you know, and I'm just asking here, but usually were the incentives aligned with properly to build, you know, proper levels of immigration with housing? Or was it, hey, we need workers, do what you got to do? You know, it's just really interesting in a discussion that I think would warrant almost a movie. Like, I think it'd be incredible to see this. Okay, now after setting the stage, now we go to grants. So I have a newsletter called the Grant Gazette. You can sign up for it at Alberta Business Grants website. And there's a lot of federal grants. And one of the grants that really caught my eye this year was, or not this year, this week, and it's open now at the time you see this, the Short-Term Rental Enforcement Fund. So grants are these tools where, you remember in the video where, the Kelowna video, where the municipality wouldn't go after them and they were really frustrated? So it's likely a resource issue for municipalities. Like, look, we can't go around, you know, we're dealing with all these other problems. We just can't go chase down some luxury home and find the owner and keep that investigation going. It's just too much, overwhelming for them. So the feds come up with a grant for the short-term enforcement. Now, it's worth reading this it's must read if you're actually an investor or thinking about getting invested. But come down here, And it says Canada needs more long-term housing, just what that minister said. The federal government is taking action to crack down on non-compliant short-term rentals, which are keeping homes off the market across the country. Fascinating, like truly fascinating. Hopefully this is landing to you, and like and subscribe to this video if you want more of these long form ones, because I'll create them because they're really interesting. And you go through here and it'll tell you all about this and the applicants, eligible applicants, municipalities that can go after this. And then if you get into the program guide, every grant has a program guide. It'll get you into, what I'll just bring this up to you here, but what are eligible activities and stuff like that. So there's that. It'll give you the eligible activities. I find this interesting, right? Conducting investigations and inspections. So municipalities who are having these problems can now apply for a grant to, go after non-compliant Airbnbs. However, I go back to the young lady who had their Airbnb in a cottage and guests. And if there's complaints, now they're in an area where there's the government's this government anyways, currently, is not on their side. And you've got headwinds, in my opinion. That's what's going on. But I tried to show you this video, which I think is so interesting, is like where the problem came from. And they didn't even probably see, they being the small business owners, probably didn't even see it coming. And then they're in the crosshairs. And it's really fascinating in the lobbying industry, and I'm just speculating here, but imagine the lobbyists of hotels. If I'm advising, well, not me, but someone's advising them saying, hey, here's a way we can get rid of Airbnbs. Those houses should be given back to people, and they don't need to compete with hotels. But I think you'll find a lot of small business owners, and I'm an Airbnb user, and this isn't a pro Airbnb film, but I'm just saying, like, sometimes you just want to have a house. You're going to a place for a week, and it's nicer to have a house than a hotel. You want the full kitchen and all that stuff in the yard for the kids to play in. So really interesting stuff that's going on here. That's a grant that municipalities can go out and win. I have a course around ultimately my mission is helping businesses and government trust one another more, so there isn't this conflict. And yeah, but I'm a grant writer, and I just try to make the world a bit of a better place. And I know it sounds kind of corny, but I teach people how to win grants. So anyway, that's a great story. I wanted to give you more of a long video this week. Let me know in the comments if you like it and what your thoughts are. Take care. Bye.